Welcome to the deep dive. There's this incredible, almost palpable energy around starting or running a business in a new country. And Portugal? Well, it absolutely has that buzz right now. But with all that excitement comes, let's be honest, the essential task of navigating local rules and making absolutely sure your venture is properly protected. So today, we're embarking on a deep dive into the surprisingly complex world of business insurance in Portugal. You've given us a really comprehensive set of sources here. And our mission, as always, is to distill the most important nuggets of knowledge. We're aiming to help you cut through the noise, figure out what's legally mandatory, what's highly recommended, and, maybe most importantly, why it all matters. For your business's future, you know.
Exactly. And we really see this deep dive as kind of a crucial shortcut, a way to get you really well informed about protecting your venture. Doesn't matter if you're a freelancer on Recibos Verdes, those are the green receipts for self-employed work, or running a small empresa, or even managing a larger operation. We're going to uncover some, well, maybe surprising facts and definitely some practical insights, really designed to cut through that information overload and get you straight to what you need.
Okay, let's really unpack this then. When you're operating a business in Portugal, it sounds like two types of insurance are legally non-negotiable. You just have to have them. First up, workers' compensation, or as it's known there, Seguro de Acidentes de Trabalho. Now, this sounds pretty standard, right? But I get the feeling there's more to it.
That's right. What often catches people, especially new business owners, off guard is just how comprehensive and broad its scope is in Portugal. You know, most people think factory worker, maybe. But if you're a single freelancer working from your home office, guess what? You are still mandated to have this for yourself. It's legally required for all employers with employees, yes, that's standard, but also for self-employed workers, the trabalhadores, independent companies hiring domestic help, and even for temporary and part-time jobs, it really casts a wide net.
Wow, okay. And the coverage itself sounds quite extensive, too. Not just like a broken arm from falling off a ladder. We're talking medical treatment for work injuries, rehab costs, compensation for lost wages, like percentage of salary, permanent disability benefits, even death benefits paid to dependents.
Yeah.
But here's where it gets really interesting, especially maybe for someone new to Portugal. It also covers commute accidents. Those home-to-work incidents, the trajectory. Wait, hang on. So if I slip on a wet step right outside my front door heading to my office, that's covered. That seems, well, much broader than what many might expect from workplace insurance.
Precisely. And that's a really important, maybe surprising detail about Portugal. The whole concept of trick basically recognizes that the journey to and from work is intrinsically linked to the work itself. It's a key protective measure, shows a sort of broader social safety net approach compared to some other countries, perhaps.
Yeah.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, well, why compliance is critical becomes crystal clear. There are significant fines for non-compliance. We're talking €500 up to €10,000. Plus, you face personal liability if you're uninsured, meaning your personal assets could be on the line. And this is required from day one, literally the first day of employment, no grace period.
What?
Premiums, by the way, are calculated based on industry risk. So office work might be pretty low, maybe 0.5 to 1% of payroll, but high-risk trades could be 5 to 8% of payroll.
And it's not just for employees. You mentioned freelancers. So if I'm self-employed on Recibos Verdes, I must insure myself too.
Yes, absolutely. You have to get it for yourself. Typically costs around maybe 200 to 800 euro annually. And often you'll need to show proof when you take on contracts.
Okay, good to know. So that's the first non-negotiable. What's the second one?
The second mandatory type is professional liability insurance, but this is specifically for certain regulated professions. And this raises an important question for you listening. Are you operating in one of these fields? The sources explicitly mention doctors, healthcare providers, lawyers, abogados, architects, engineers, real estate agents, mediadors, also insurance brokers, travel agencies, construction companies, and security services. For these folks, minimum coverage limits are set by their professional bodies or orders. Annual renewal is mandatory, and you need proof for your license. It's essentially guarding against that oops moment in professional advice or service delivery.
Okay, so we've covered the absolute must-haves. Protecting your people, protecting your professional services if you're in one of those fields. But what about the kind of broader scope of your business? Beyond the mandatory stuff, there's a whole world of smart optional coverage, things that can really safeguard your business. Let's talk about general liability insurance, specifically public liability coverage or responsabilidade civil jurídico. What does this actually protect you from?
Well, what's noteworthy here is just how wide a range of potential interactions this policy covers. It gives you broad protection for things like customer injuries on your premises, Think someone slipping on a wet floor in your shop. Also, property damage to third parties, product liability claims, like if something you sell causes harm, completed operations liability, which covers issues after a job is done, and even things like advertising injury claims, maybe libel or slander. It's basically your primary safety net for those unexpected incidents involving the public or their property.
Right. So who really needs this then? If I'm, say, a small one-person online business and I hardly ever interact with clients physically, do I need this?
Yeah.
Or could I maybe skip it to save a bit?
That's a very fair question. And it gets down to smart risk assessment, doesn't it? Mandatory insurance? Well, it's non-negotiable. But for optional policies, it's really about evaluating your specific exposure. For that solo online consultant you mentioned, general liability might be a lower priority if they genuinely have zero physical client interaction. However, if you're a retail business, a restaurant, a service provider with a physical space, a manufacturer, it's absolutely critical. Essentially, pretty much anyone with public or customer interaction needs it. Typical coverage limits, they range. Recommended minimum might be $50,000, but it can go up to $1 million or even more for higher risk businesses. And importantly, legal defense costs are usually included, which, as you know, can be astronomical on their own.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay. Then there's professional indemnity insurance. We touched on it being mandatory for some, but it sounds like it's actually essential for a wider group too.
It really is. While it is mandatory for those regulated professions we listed, it's highly, highly recommended for consultants, IT professionals, designers, financial advisors, really any advice-giving profession. Its coverage steps in for things like professional negligence, errors and omissions, mistakes, breach of confidentiality, intellectual property issues, even losing important documents. This truly covers that human error factor in professional advice. A seemingly small mistake in, say, a financial projection or a design flaw for a client, suddenly you're facing a significant claim. This policy steps in to cover those costs, from legal defense right through to potential damages awarded.
Okay, got it. Now let's pivot a bit to protecting your physical stuff. Commercial property insurance, known as multi-riscos empresarial. What's wrapped up in this one?
Right. This type of insurance is really comprehensive for your physical operation. It covers your buildings, if you own them, of course, your contents, desks, computers, furniture, your equipment, your stock and inventory. And critically, something called business interruption. The standard perils it covers are pretty wide-ranging. Fire, explosion, water damage, theft, vandalism, natural disasters like floods or storms, even power surges. It's essentially your blanket protection for your physical place of business.
Now let's double-click on that business interruption insurance component, because that sounds like it could be an absolute lifesaver.
It absolutely is. Just think about it. If a fire or maybe a serious flood forces your business to shut down temporarily, this coverage kicks in. It covers the lost income you would have earned during that shutdown period. It covers your ongoing expenses, things like rent, salaries that you still have to pay. It can cover temporary relocation costs and any extra expenses you need just to get operations back up and running quickly. It's vital because a physical disaster doesn't just damage property, it can stop your income stream dead in its tracks.
Yeah, that's huge. And finally, you mentioned specialized protection for machinery, IT systems, HVAC, electrical stuff. There's equipment breakdown coverage for that, covering repairs, replacement, even spoilage.
Exactly. That's for protecting those crucial systems from internal breakdown, not just external perils like fire, critical for certain industries like food service or manufacturing.
Right. Okay. Moving into the modern world. In today's digital age, some coverages seem to be shifting from, nice to have towards must have. I'm thinking specifically about cyber insurance. How important is this really, especially maybe for smaller businesses who think, oh, hackers won't target me?
Its growing importance is just undeniable. And honestly, it's becoming less of a nice to have and more of a non-negotiable for so many businesses now. It's absolutely crucial for e-commerce sites, anyone processing data, online service providers, really any business handling customer data. And it covers a whole suite of things. The costs of responding to a data breach, business interruption if a cyber attack shuts you down, cyber extortion, think ransomware demands, also legal liability if customer data gets compromised, and even reputation management costs after an incident. To give you a rough idea of costs, small businesses might typically see premiums around 500 or 2,000 euros a year. Medium businesses, maybe 2,000 to 10,000 annually. Depends on revenue, data volume, security posture.
Yeah.
But the potential costs of a breach, they can easily be 10 times that or much, much more. So it's often a very smart investment.
That's a powerful argument, yeah. Then there's directors and officers insurance, or D&O. Who is this really aimed at? Is it just for big corporations?
Not necessarily just huge corporations, but it is protection specifically for management, the directors and officers of a company. It covers their personal liability, legal defense costs if they're sued for decisions made while running the company, allegations of wrongful acts, regulatory investigations. It's particularly important for limited companies in Portugal. That's Sociedades por Quotas (LEDA) or Sociedades Anónimas (SA), and especially if you have investors. Investors will often demand this coverage to protect their investment and the individuals running the show.
Makes sense. And for businesses using vehicles, there's commercial auto insurance, which, as you said, goes beyond a personal policy. Fleet options, goods in transit cover, higher liability limits, addresses those specific business risks. Beyond those, your sources also flag some interesting industry-specific requirements. Can you walk us through a couple of examples?
Absolutely. This is where it gets quite tailored. For instance, in construction, there's a mandatory 10-year building warranty, the Garantie Decennal. That's huge for long-term liability. Plus, you need all-risk construction insurance during the build itself. For food service, the crucial need is often product liability if someone gets sick and spoilage coverage. Imagine a power outage ruining thousands of euros worth of inventory.
Ouch.
Yeah. The technology sector really emphasizes professional liability for advice services, cyber insurance, obviously, and intellectual property coverage, given their intangible assets. And for tourism and hospitality, you often find mandatory travel agency bonds to protect customer money and guest property coverage in hotels. It really shows how insurance needs to fit the specific business, doesn't it?
It really does. Okay, let's talk money. Nobody wants to overpay. With all these options floating around, what does this all mean for actually optimizing costs? Let's discuss premium optimization strategies. Any pro tips for keeping the budget in check without, leaving yourself exposed?
Yeah, there are definitely several practical ways to manage costs. A really common strategy is bundling policies, putting general liability, property, maybe even cyber into one multi-risk package. Insurers often give decent discounts for that. Implementing robust risk management is key too. Having solid safety programs, doing regular inspections. This makes you look like a lower risk to the insurer, which can lead to lower premiums.
Right.
Choosing higher deductibles is another lever you can pull. You take on a bit more of the initial risk yourself if there's a small claim, but your regular premium drops. It's a balancing act. Also worth exploring if any industry associations you belong to offer group rates. And of course, building up a claims-free history usually earns you discounts over time.
Okay, so when you're actually comparing providers, shopping around, what should you look for beyond just the price tag? Because I assume the cheapest quote isn't always the best deal.
Exactly. Price is important, obviously, but you need to evaluate several other critical things. First, coverage completeness. Does the policy actually cover everything you need it to? Are there sneaky gaps or exclusions? Second, check the claim's service reputation of the insurer. Ask around, look for reviews. You want an insurer who pays out fairly and relatively quickly when you actually need them. That's the moment of truth.
Absolutely.
Third, their industry expertise. Do they genuinely understand the specific risks in your line of business? Fourth, policy flexibility. Can it adapt as your business grows or maybe pivots? And crucially, particularly in Portugal for expats maybe, is language support. Are the policy documents available in English? Do they have English-speaking brokers or claims handlers? That can make a huge difference. Some of the major players you see in the Portuguese market include Fidelidade, Tranquilidade, which is part of Generali, now Allianz, Portugal, Zurich, plus more specialized providers like Hiscox, especially for professional lines.
Okay, good rundown. So let's say you have the coverage. You've chosen wisely. Now, let's talk about the moment you hope never comes, but might. What happens if you actually need to make a claim?
What's fascinating here, according to the sources, are the specific reporting procedures. It sounds like it's not just a matter of making a quick phone call whenever you get around to it.
No, definitely not. Timeliness is key. For workers' compensation, immediate reporting, ideally within 24 hours, is absolutely crucial, along with prioritizing medical attention for the injured person, of course. For property damage or general liability claims, again, immediate notification to your insurer is vital. And preserving evidence is so important. Don't clean up too much before documenting. Always remember to try and mitigate further damage if it's safe to do so, like, turning off the water main if there's a burst pipe, that sort of thing.
And the importance of documentation. I imagine you need to keep absolutely everything related to the incident. You really do. Meticulous records are your best friend in a claim situation. You'll need detailed incident reports, what happened, when, where, who was involved, witness statements if there are any, photos, videos of the damage or the scene. comprehensive medical documentation for any injuries, and critically, detailed evidence of the financial impact on your business, lost sales, repair costs, etc. The more thorough you are upfront, generally the smoother the claims process tends to be.
This also seems to tie back into risk management integration. How can businesses proactively reduce their risk, not just to avoid claims, but maybe even to lower their premiums over time?
That's a great point. Loss prevention efforts really pay off. Things like thorough employee training on safety procedures, investing in safety equipment, these can definitely lead to premium reductions or better terms from insurers because they see you're actively managing your risk profile. Also, having a solid business continuity plan, a BCP, is essential, and it should really coordinate directly with your insurance coverage. The goal is to ensure a smooth, swift recovery after any kind of disruption, minimizing the downtime and the financial hit. It's all about getting back on your feet quickly.
Okay, finally, let's focus on foreign business owners specifically. Are there any special considerations they should be particularly aware of when navigating this insurance landscape in Portugal?
Yeah, a couple of key things often come up. Language barriers can be a concern, obviously. But the good news is that English-speaking brokers are quite common, especially in major cities. And policy translation services are often available, though maybe at an extra cost sometimes. When it comes to compliance navigation, the main thing is understanding the sequence. You generally need to get your NIF, that's your personal tax number, and your NIPC, the corporate tax number, sorted out first, and get registered with Social Security before you actually start operations. These are foundational steps. And as we've discussed, proof of mandatory insurance, like workers' comp, is often required for actually licensing your business type. Don't try to skip these steps.
Right, get the foundation solid first. Okay, let's
Yeah.
wrap this deep dive up by talking about common mistakes to avoid.
Huh.
What are the biggest gotchas you see businesses falling into with insurance in Portugal?
Several critical errors pop up frequently. Underestimating coverage needs is a big one. Maybe buying too little liability cover just to save a few euros, but then facing a huge claim. Completely missing mandatory insurance, like workers' comp for a freelancer, is a massive, costly mistake due to fines and personal liability. Having inadequate liability limits or perhaps unseen policy gaps where you think you're covered for something but actually aren't because of an exclusion you missed that's dangerous. Also, delays in reporting claims, as we just discussed, can sometimes jeopardize coverage. And finally, just poor record keeping can make proving a claim much harder than it needs to be.
So what's the key takeaway for ongoing management then? It sounds like buying insurance isn't just a one-and-done task you tick off a list.
Absolutely not. It needs active management. I really emphasize the importance of having something like an annual review checklist. You need to regularly evaluate changes in your business. Has your revenue significantly increased? Have you hired more employees? Started new activities? Bought major new equipment? And always review your claims history. All these things can impact whether your current coverage is still adequate or optimized. For brand new businesses, the advice is pretty clear. Identify your mandatory coverage immediately. Assess all your specific risks thoroughly. Get multiple quotes from different brokers or insurers, and implement everything before you open your doors or start trading. For existing businesses, it's more about reviewing your current coverage against your current operations, benchmarking the pricing to make sure it's competitive, and proactively planning for future growth or changes.
We have truly taken a deep dive today into this essential landscape of business insurance in Portugal.
Oh.
Wow. From really understanding the non-negotiables like workers' comp and that specific professional liability, to exploring things like cyber coverage and smart cost-saving strategies, you should now have a much more robust framework.
Yeah, and if we connect this back to the bigger picture, it really becomes clear that proper business insurance isn't just some legal formality or another annoying item on your startup to-do list. It's genuinely a fundamental pillar for sustainable operations. It provides that crucial peace of mind. It lets you focus on what you actually do best, growing your business. It really complements your personal health insurance, maybe your home insurance, creating this comprehensive security net from pretty much every angle.
So, thinking about all this, what does it all mean for your venture? As you navigate your own business journey in Portugal, maybe take a moment to consider, how might a really proactive approach to insurance not just protect your assets from the unexpected disaster, but how could it actually fuel your confidence? Confidence to innovate, to take smart risks, and to really grow your enterprise.
Exactly. We really encourage you to take these insights we've discussed and apply them directly to your unique business situation. Maybe start by just listing out your own specific risks and requirements on paper, and then, armed with that, consult with trusted professionals, brokers, advisors to compare your options properly and implement the right protection for you. the key message. Don't delay. The time to get protected is always before you actually need it.